Good evening. I'd like to share with you an understanding, a puzzle, and a heresy. What three?
Understanding, a puzzle, and a heresy.
Right. Good. Okay. Here we go now. What are we going to do? Right? To introduce you into this is going to be somewhat unorthodox. Therefore, that's the heresy. And all set. I have a copy of the Phaedo, and I'm going to read a few sections out of it once in a while. But the myth of the Phaedo is the concluding part of the great dialogue between Socrates, Simmias, and Cebes. After it's over, he prepares for his death, has a few words with Cebes, drinks the hemlock, and dies. All right. Now, there are several controlling myths in the Phaedo. We are only tonight going to talk about what is called the formal myth. There are other myths. There's the Theseus myth. There's the myth of Harmonia. There's the myth of Cadmus. There's the myth of Apollo. All of these play a role. But right now we're just going to focus on this extended myth at the end of the dialogue. Here is the first puzzle. Ready? Here it is. The whole dialogue is about death. The whole dialogue is about death. Socrates says something quite amazing. He says, true philosophy is nothing other than the study of dying and being dead. And he makes it quite clear that he's using these words in an unusual way, because he says most people do not know in what way philosophers desire death. They don't know in what way philosophers deserve death. And most essentially, the many do not understand what kind of death it is. Therefore, we don't want to be among the many. We want to know in what way they desire death, deserve it, and the kind of it. Well, first, the idea is quite important to get, of the idea of soul. Soul takes on various meanings. You can talk about the parts of the soul being reason, talk about it being the spirited element, you can talk about it being the appetitive element brought together into a unity, and we can call that soul. It's also, right from the root, psyche, breath, vitality. Breath, the vitality in breath. Very much what the Hindus mean by prana. Therefore, that breath or vitality is extended through the whole body. Therefore, I'm going to picture that in this way. That's the vitality. In other words, right now we should be able to demonstrate that you can focus that interesting thing we have in various places. Try not to be aware of your right foot. Right? Try not to be aware of what's going on in your right foot. Or don't pay any attention what your left hand is doing. Well, we go right for it, don't we? See, there's something within us that is distributed throughout, that we get in touch with. Now, how do you die? How do you die? Because there is a way of dying. If there's a certain kind of death, there's a way of dying, and that's what philosophers, real philosophers, study. See, ing, process, completion, being dead. 2 parts, a process. He says, death is a purification. See, it's a purification. There's something you have to do. It's a process, and if you're successful, that's going to be death. Well, what is it? Let me give you a quote. So, it's so important that I have to share the quote with you. It's one of my favorite quotes. There are times when you don't want to be told, and this is one of them. You don't want to be told. The quote's too important. Now, the big thing we want to know 2 things. I want to know this curious thing called death is the separation of the soul from the body. Well, there are a lot of ways in which you can say you're separating the soul from the body. There are a lot of things you can avoid, such as too much attachment to things of the body. Everybody knows that. I want to talk about something else. Death is the separation of the soul from the body. Death is the separation of the soul from the body. And the state of being dead is the state in which the body is separated from the soul and exists alone by itself, and the soul is separated from the body and exists by itself. Therefore, there has to be a complete separation so that the soul is alone by itself. Now, I want to jump and give you a very interesting quote. Does not the purification consists in this, which we've mentioned many times in our discourses, in separating as far as possible the soul from the body and teaching the soul the habit, see, it's a habit of collecting and bringing itself together from all parts of the body. The habit, it's something you have to keep trying, keep doing. Right? It's the habit of, it's the habit of bringing itself together from all parts of the body and living as far as it can, both now and hereafter. Right? We all have to obviously face the death of the hereafter.